Hello there. What is going on, everybody? Today we're going to be talking about Star Wars Armada Rapid Reinforcements 2, which we do know is coming. So it's a very kind of exciting topic to talk about today, although I think some people probably aren't as excited as I am. I'll kind of frame everything that we're going to be talking about today and how we know it's coming, why we expect at least one more is coming, and why this is maybe good, maybe bad, all kinds of things for Star Wars Armada. But really, what my predictions would be for the next iteration of Rapid Reinforcements. Little admin stuff. We're doing a big giveaway right now for a Star Wars Shatterpoint core set. In the form of a $165 Amazon gift card. If you're interested in wanting a chance to win that, you just have to be a subscriber and leave a comment on this or one of my videos. It's as simple as that. And you want to check out any more social media stuff, links for all that stuff are in the description below. Join our Discord, keep the discussion going there. And you can also head over to Crabbok.com and get your free Armada AI expansion, as well as certain other Armada content that I have out there. I've made a couple of my own versions of expansions if you want to check those out and see some of the thoughts that kind of float around in my head for the game. But all that stuff is totally free. You can check it out and have fun with it there. So what are we talking about today? We're talking about Rapid Reinforcements 2. Why? So in a recent Star Wars Shatterpoint interview, I had Will Schick on the show, and we were talking about Shatterpoint and a lot of other things. And one of the questions I brought up was about how a lot of folks feel like that making a new Star Wars game is sort of a death sentence to the other games, and that led us down that path, talking about their other games and how they want to approach being able to create content for those games, which of course brought up Armada. And at one point I commented, that Rapid Reinforcements was a great way to kind of get content out there, and that was great, and we hope to see more. In which Will Schick did confirm there was at least one more of those coming down the pipe. So that's pretty cool. But at the same time, some folks were a little bit less than impressed, because I guess at the point of this discussion in our interview, there was also a line about not really being in a position to make meaningful content for a lot of these games, including games like Star Wars Armada. And so I think a lot of people were expecting more than just a Rapid Reinforcements. I think a lot of people were hoping that they'd be working on more physical expansions during this time, and that like maybe a digital or a print and play might not be enough for some folks. And I can understand that, but I personally, I think I have been through the whole spectrum of ideas, thoughts, hopes, and fears when it comes to Star Wars Armada and future product for Star Wars Armada. And I've been all throughout the spectrum. I honestly didn't expect there was going to be any more ships anymore, at least any more pre-painted ships. I'm of the mindset that maybe someday they might start working on new Armada, or maybe even a new edition of Armada. If so, I would expect it to be like on a sprue or on a frame, like basically having to build your ships yourself and paint the ships yourself, which isn't usually a hard thing to do for games like this. I mean, Star Destroyers are gray. They're pretty much just gray, and so they're not hot. Like, you get a can of gray spray paint, you're 90% done. Paint a little engine glow on there if you want to. They're not hard to paint, but again, not everybody is into that sort of thing. And so I get that there's a lot of stuff, but that's just my own personal preference. I'd be fine with that. I actually really like being able to paint my own ships, and so I think I would really enjoy a game that had that gave you especially if there's some extra customizability in there. If there's something that you can kind of put the ships over the top beyond where they already are. And that's tough. That's a tough bill to ask for Star Wars Armada, because you got such great ships already. So yeah, I would probably expect it to be an all-new game. So I think that's mentally where I was at. And so to hear Will Schick talk about Rapid Reinforcements, at least one more of them. So a Rapid Reinforcements 2 at least, with the door being open for Rapid Reinforcement 3 or 4. That excited me. That excited me quite a bit. So I want to talk today about the hype factor, because I love Star Wars Armada. It's in a moderately good place right now, and what I mean by that is the game is definitely alive and well. It is getting a lot of play, getting ready to have Worlds. in a couple of days, and you know, lots of people playing the game. There's a lot of ships out there. The Rebels and the Empire are in a better place. Theirs are almost complete factions, whereas the Clone Wars need some help. They at least got a wave after their starters, but they need more than that. Imagine Armada only had waves 1, 2, 3, and 4, or something like that. You know, for the Empire and the Rebels, you'd have some holes, and that's kind of where we are with the Clone Wars right now. They really need at least another full wave specifically to address like all of the cards that reference things that really don't exist yet, and all the keywords and traits that are on ships that have hooks for other cards to tie in, but none of those hooks are being used right now. There's a whole lot of empty space in the Clone Wars factions that really could use to be filled, and a few empty things I think that could be used to be filled in the Empire and Rebellion as well, but just a lot less. Those are mostly complete factions. There definitely is some other things that need to change too. There's some points rebalancings that probably need to happen. Maybe even a few errata and slight little card alterations to make things almost perfect. Although probably every time you move one thing, something else is going to fall. So it's not as easy as just making a points adjustment and calling it a day. But it's still, the game is in a pretty good spot right now. It's got a very healthy meta. So that makes me think, well, what could they do, to be kind of like Rapid Reinforcements 1 to really spice things up? So most of my predictions are going to be Clone Wars related. And I'm going to start off with if they copy Rapid Reinforcements 1. What I mean by copy that is if they follow the exact same playbook, which would be like just, new ships and squadrons, right? I think the first option is the most clear, the biggest and most obvious and easiest thing potentially for them to do would be to make a Republic Architans. It's definitely the one ship that is most, well, I'd say one of two ships that are most missing from the game right now, most notably being the Republic Architans, and the second place would probably being the Lucrehulk for the Separatists, which would be a lot less easy and a lot less simple to do. This one passes the common sense test on so many levels. There's only one problem with this one, but first off, it's iconic. It'll be easy to repaint. They already have the ship made. I don't even think you'd have to change that much in its functionality. You'd probably want to give it a couple of tweaks and give it a few minor changes. Some people have suggested giving it an ion cannon as a way to get ion cannons into the Republic. I don't know if you need to do that, though. I don't know if the Republic even needs to have an ion cannon slot at all, because I'd be a little reluctant to make this ship a little bit too powerful, because I think it's already an incredible ship in how it works for the Empire. But I can see these ships as being maybe even a little bit better than they are right now if you bring them over to the Republic, because they're newer at this point in the war. They are a brand new ship, as opposed to when you see them in the Empire, they are in a state of slowly being decommissioned. They're older ships at this point, and they don't have their original crews. These ships were built for the Clone Wars, where like they had a bunch of clone officers and clone crew with Jedi commanders and things like that. So I don't feel like the Empire would have been able to employ these quite as well as the Republic did. So I would imagine a Republic Architans being a tremendously powerful ship, and I'd love to see it, and I'd love to see some broadside action really from the Architans. So I'd look forward to seeing that. Maybe even two different versions of it as well. I think a Lucrehulk would be a little bit more difficult to do. The only difficulty I think with this one would be that Architans are kind of out of print right now, so they'd have to get a nice new print run of Architans going, which I think would be a smart move, even if the prices eventually have to come up a little bit. I don't know if what the profit margin is on pre-painted ships right now, but everybody's always out of Architans. It's like the most in-demand ship in the game already. So I guess the one possible problem might be that folks can't get them. and I can see that being an issue. It's definitely a possibility. So I think that's the only drawback here. But that could just mean, hey, look, we got to reprint more stuff, and oh look, it's still selling out every time. I mean, these things have come back into print so many times over the years, and every time, like every day they come back into availability, they're instantly sold out again because they're a great ship. They're a small ship. They're cheaper to field, so you can run lots of them in a list. So people tend to want like 3, 4, or even 5. I think you can. I mean, I think I've seen somebody run 6. I had 6 at one point, but it's a great ship. I like to run 4 or 5 of them in a list. So, I said the Lucre Hulk. Lucre Hulk will be a lot more difficult to do. Although I've talked a little bit about the possibility of maybe doing Lucre Hulk on an Onagers base, because you do have that arc. I feel like there's a little bit of mechanics that could work there. You'd be using existing pre-printed arcs that instead of it being a firing, the special firing arc, you could actually be like a different shield zone or something where maybe you're vulnerable there because that's where the squads can fly in or something like that and attack your core. Or something to that effect. But the thing is, then that would require a lot more development. And not only that, I feel like we have to think about what can they get past Lucasfilm for licensing, because something about the way Rapid Reinforcements was worded, they had to use the exact same ship, but then just maybe make some tweaks on how this other faction would employ it, right? So like, you're not going to be able to pass they couldn't change the name of the ship type. Like the Sea Rock was still listed as a Gazanti, even though its model number should have been different. Like they were able to kind of squeeze that through. That was probably a little bit of a stretch. It would be no problem with Architans. It's still an Architans. But in the case of using an Onagers ship card and or base, you would have a pretty tough time, because that would be so different from what we saw with Rapid Reinforcements. You'd be passing off one entirely different ship as another. To try to make that work if they're having to follow the same playbook they did for Rapid Reinforcements 1. If they can get, licensing and everything to sign off on just saying, hey, that's fine, print a Lucre Hulk card, call it a Lucre Hulk, and just say you're going to use the Architans base, and you can give it a print and play Lucre Hulk base also, and maybe give it the same lines as an Onager. This way people can, if they want to use their cardboard base, they can just put an Onager's base in there, but still use the Lucre Hulk card. That would be a way to do it. I think that's the best way to make it work. I still kind of want a Lucre Hulk to be a huge ship, but it may not be feasible right now. The most realistic way to do it may simply be to make it as a as a large. It could go either way. I would love for it to be a huge ship. Speaking of huge ships, how about following the same thing? I think you'd have an easier time selling this for the Separatists, going with the Malevolence and using a Superstar Destroyer base. You could use the prototype, because that's not the Executor. It's not the Executor, right? If you use one of the prototypes and call that the Malevolence, I think that works. I think that could be close enough to possibly getting it to be able to double as a Malevolence. You'd probably want to do a title in there. You'd probably want some kind of ion cannon super weapon that it can equip or something like that, and make it. You'd have to. The only problem with that is to make it thematic and realistic, but not broken. You'd have to do a lot of playtesting time. Like have this. Kind of slow moving, is like a potentially easily dodged weapon. It'd be really cool. Like I think you'd have to have some incredibly crippling critical effect on there, but maybe something that says like evades cancel an extra die when they're used, or maybe even 2 extra dice. So evadable ships, can really work, or something like that. I don't know. It's gonna be interesting. All right, let's move on a little bit, because I want to talk about the other factions. I don't know that the Rebels and the Empire need more ships, but I mean, I know a lot of people want a Rebel Quasar. I think that's a possibility. I don't know if it's super necessary, because you can always use a Quasar on an Assault Frigate Mark II's base. I mean, the Rebels and the Empire have so much anyway. I would love to see Rapid Reinforcements to be different than Rapid Reinforcements 1 and focus more on the Clone Wars where it's needed more. But if they're going to keep it the same, maybe a Rebel Quasar and maybe an Imperial Nebulon. The Empire used those also. It seems canonically correct. Sorry about that. I've got no problem with that. So let's also, maybe if you're looking for another GAR, or a CIS rather, another CIS ship, the Tridents, if they can pass one ship off as another, maybe use a GR-75 stats to be like one of the Trident, assault ships, the little squid ships. I thought that could work. That would be interesting. You'd have to give it some special weapons, some special grappling technology or something like that. Would be different. Might be fun, might be cool. I don't know. I guess we'd have to see. Or maybe, what if Rapid Reinforcements 2 doesn't follow the pattern that Rapid Reinforcements 1 does? Maybe it does some different things. Maybe the CIS don't get a ship at all. Maybe they get more squads to make up for it. They didn't get a squad last time, right? So maybe they get squads. Jango Fett in the Slave 1 seems like a perfect fit. I absolutely would love to see Jango in a Slave 1. You've already got Slave 1s. It's as simple, and it's literally the exact same ship. So, you have no problem, matching its technologies or capabilities. You just have to give Jango Fett a cool new pilot ability to make him work and synergize with the Separatists a little bit. I wouldn't give him a rage token, though. He's, the Separatists already have a lot of rage token shenanigans, but maybe, Bomber seems great. Maybe he can drop bombs a little bit easier. You've definitely got, instead of just bombing ships, maybe you can drop, the proximity mine tokens and things like that. Or maybe he does something else. Oh, that's all unique and new. It could be fun. What about Asajj Ventress? There's a couple of ways you could run Asajj Ventress. You could probably put her in a Belabelub, something in a way to make Belabelubs used a little bit more. But honestly, you've already got Lancers in the game. Well, I would just say give her a Lancer. Only problem you might have with that is I think by the time she was using a Lancer, she wasn't affiliated with the Separatists anymore at that time. So maybe a Belabelub would make a little bit more sense for her. Or give her both and maybe make one neutral. You could probably make. Would it be that far of a stretch to make a squadron that is not faction specific that can go in any faction? That's risky because you then have to balance it against every possible combination. So maybe you just make different versions of her to work with different builds. It's an interesting thing. But I think Separatists could use the most as far as if they do more squadrons. I don't think you need a whole lot more stuff, but you could. There's certain other things that are easier to do and other ones that are harder to do. You've got Z95s already, so you could easily do clones for if you wanted more Republic squadrons. I don't really feel like we need a whole lot more right now. I don't feel like we need a whole lot more Rebel and Imperial squadrons, but you could do clone Z95s. That one would be pretty easy, I would think. That's some pretty interesting stuff. What if we were... This one also would be a little trickier. What if we did the stealth ship, for the Republic? It's, kind of like the Carrion Spike or something like that. But the Republic had it on screen. It was a pretty important episode. That's one I always wanted to see, and I think it's one FFG would have eventually gotten around to. They would have to come up with a way to make it cloak, though, and that's a tricky one. Maybe it gets a scatter, that stays exhausted, and then it can't ever be recovered. It gets a one. Maybe it has a title that shows it as being cloaked or whatever. That's a one time per game. You can exhaust the title and then apply the scatter effect, and that's how that one might be the easiest way to do cloaking. Although a better way to do cloaking would be something similar to Hyperspace Assault or how Radis warps somebody in. I know you're somewhere around here, but I don't know where you are. Only problem with that is that you can't be shot. And cloaking, maybe you could be able to be shot if somebody knew exactly where, or they got lucky. And so I feel like scatter might be an easier way to do a stealth ship. That could be a fun thing. You don't really see, you don't see scatter on any primary big ships. But what would be a ship body type that would be appropriate for a stealth ship? I feel like maybe a raider is close enough to the size and close enough to the capabilities for something like that. It's not going to come in like and all of a sudden one shot your fleet. It's just going to do a little punch. And maybe that cloaking capability would give it the power to do it. But I don't think you'd be able to again mask off a raider as being a stealth ship. It's a totally different ship. But that does kind of segue me into some other things. So, we talked a little bit about Django. We talked about some other stuff. Other characters need to show up in this game, and whether they're not even squadrons or not, like I want to see like folks like Mace Windu show up as a new commander. I want to see commanders in this game. I want to see Rapid Reinforcements 2 bring commanders for the Clone Wars factions. I think that's something that we really need. One of the big problems I have with where the Clone Wars is right now is we have 6 commanders per side, which is a lot less than the Republic or than the Empire and the Rebels have. But out of those 6 commanders, we have a lot of overlap. The Republic, half their commanders are dealing with squadrons. And so you basically kind of have to do squadron-based builds, pretty much. And the Separatists, half of their commanders are offensive ship-to-ship, like dice mitigation, like extra dice or dice setting a dice to a specific side, which is great. But I mean, and I love that, but it's very limiting because it means if I'm running, Separatists, I'm usually running one of those 3. And it means the other ones are harder to do. Like you have Trench, who's just not good enough. Just doesn't have, I think, all the pieces that he might have needed to really make him shine. You've got Grievous, which is weird because he wants squadrons, but he doesn't help the squadrons. So like they don't even have a squadron-based commander. Grievous is there to. What is he even there to do? Like just to have squadrons die to get defense tokens back. So kind of like Obi-Wan Kenobi a little bit, like, and then he deals with ship defense in a way. But the Republic needs a ship offense, and I think the Separatists needs squadron support. And so I think this is a great way to do that, to give those factions more build options. I mean, there's some build options already, but there's not the commanders that support those fleets. So Mace Windu could be a fleet-wide offensive commander for the Republic. How about Anakin Skywalker? We're talking about the stealth ship. What if he were a single ship commander? Those single ship commanders sort of run the risk of being overpowered in some regards, and I feel like he could potentially work. I envision Anakin Skywalker as being the type of commander who is not a good commander for your whole fleet, and that he tends to leave the rest of the fleet behind and say, "Look, I'll handle this," and like forget his whole team that's behind him, charging off into battle, right? So, like I always thought if they did the stealth ship as an expansion pack, he'd be a commander that came in it, because that's just to me a very iconic episode of the Clone Wars. Where he does exactly that and just kind of charges in and kind of like a cowboy going in and doing his own thing. So I would imagine Anakin would be similar to the Darth Vader ability, like he would involve sacrificing defense for offense. He would maybe spend defense tokens to add a die, or maybe even discard defense tokens to add a die while attacking, and just for his own ship. Some way that which runs the risk of being very, very powerful. You can get a really big attack with something that the Republic doesn't have, but at the same time, you'll leave yourself pretty vulnerable after that. Now, putting him on a Venator, theoretically, you could potentially spend 4, tokens, gain 4 extra dice for one really massive attack, and then you have no defense tokens for the rest of the game. Now that ship is going to die because you were too aggressive. Right, so Anakin's very, very that's just a rough idea. Obviously, there'd have to be some tuning and some changes to that, some tweaks to it. But that's a thought. Something along those lines. Him kind of filling that role of charging ahead, leaving the rest of his fleet behind, and going all out offense. And sometimes it works, or sometimes he gets himself in over his head. That would be my thought. That's kind of how I would want Anakin to flow. Or you could have Yoda. I think Yoda's another good option. Some kind of fleet support, maybe a movement-based commander, maybe giving extra yaw to to ships that are out there. Or maybe he has a once per turn. Maybe he's got 3 different options. You can exhaust him to do one of 3 different things, like recover a shield on a ship, or ready a defense token, or something like that, or give a ship a yaw. Maybe he gives your fleet some flexibility, and he's fleet wide. Something like that. A different support that the Republic doesn't really have right now. A lot of the other factions have some type of movement based commander. We don't see that over here. I think the Separatists could get Wat Tambor as a commander. I mean, Techno Union, right? He would be the perfect. For me, he seems like he'd be the perfect squadron support commander, giving him bonuses to AI, perhaps. Maybe giving you those vulture droids or the bombers some kind of bonus. The Separatists have bombers that have a lot of potential, but they don't have support. And it doesn't have to be something as simple as extra dice or even rerolls or anything like that. It could be something to give them extra movement to your squadrons to get them into position to do stuff. It could be maybe change the way squadrons are deployed. Maybe he gives you some kind of way to launch squadrons from your ships, or to repair squadrons even. That's another option. There's a lot of options for that. I also thought of an interesting commander idea for Asajj Ventress. If she were a commander because she's been on fleets before, but she usually is a command. My idea is Asajj Ventress would be a kind of a thematic commander, that she's actually got a mission. Like the droids are like, well, what is she doing here? What's going on? What are our orders? She says, just get me close to that ship, and then she leaves. And she boards the other ship. So she'd almost be like a boarding party. And her whole job is, kind of like a single ship commander, to be an assassin, where she could, basically her function is you would flip her over, and you would also eliminate an enemy officer or commander. That sounds kind of crazy, but if you think about it, well, she's your commander, but she's giving no bonus to your fleet, because again, much like Anakin, Asajj doesn't really care about the other Separatists. She doesn't care about her team. She's got a mission. She's going to do her mission and ignore everything else. So she'd be at a deficit because she wouldn't be giving your fleet anything. But at the same time, she'd be leveling the playing field, because if she could, incapacitate your opponent's commander, even if she doesn't kill them, maybe they're just dueling, and now all of a sudden that other commander, can't give any benefit anymore because Asajj Ventress has them occupied. So thematically, you could see like they're fighting in the core of a Venator or something like that. Now the whole fleet's like, well, what are we? Where's Kenobi? What, we were supposed to be getting our defensive bonuses, So I think that could be really cool. On the other hand, that could also mean that Asajj Ventress could just be a boarding party. But if she's a boarding party that could potentially incapacitate a commander, then that's way too strong. So I think the only way to do it is to make her as a commander that has that once per game ability to try to level the playing field. You'd have to be at range 1, so it's not something you could do early, and you'd also be kind of broadcasting your intentions while also having no benefit for your fleet. It's a thought, I don't know, but I just feel like these are certain things that they could certainly do, because we need more commanders for these factions, and those would reference some play areas of the game that aren't really represented in the Clone Wars factions. The last thing I'm thinking about is upgrade cards. We need more upgrade cards. Not many, but some. And specifically upgrade cards that reference those big holes I was talking about earlier. Things like those hooks. I had created Crabbid reinforcements. It's over on Crabbok.com, and you can find like some of my ideas. They're basically cards that have like transport only or bombard only. They have all these. You have like keywords like comms and Senate and Jedi and things like that. Droid and clone. And outside of droid and clone, like these keywords aren't referenced anywhere in the game. It was a whole new avenue of approach that FFG was like building up, like future long, well-laid plans, right? And they never got to see fruition. We need some upgrade cards that reference those keywords. I wouldn't even be surprised to see all of the existing ships get adjusted and to have appropriate keywords on them at some point. That should probably come at the same time as like a points rebalance, and maybe a new card upgrade pack or something like that would be really nice. But but yeah, so I'd love to see some cards that reference those things. I even have some stuff in Crabbok Reinforcements that has new ways to make raid tokens more useful again, because there's a lot of there's a lot of stuff out there to potentially put raid tokens on, but separatists are really the only people that can take advantage of that. And so the other factions, well, it'd be nice if they had something that they could use raid tokens for as well. But those are just some of my ideas, some things that I'd like to see show up in Rapid Reinforcements 2. I think my biggest thing is more commanders. I want to see Anakin Skywalker as a commander for the Republic. It's like my #1 on my wish list. So hopefully we'll get stuff like that at some point. Hopefully announced this year. That's my hope. I guess we'll have to wait and see. If you like what you see here, make sure you stick around. We talk a lot about Star Wars tabletop games here, so I want to thank you all for hanging out with me. Big thanks to my patrons. You guys are absolutely amazing and help make this channel possible. Thank you for your continued support. If you're interested in joining the team, check the links in the description below. May the Force be with you. Live long and prosper. Be excellent to each other. And cowabunga.